And welcome back to coverage here of the World Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Thank you so much for coming along. We are in the last round of our booster draft here for the tournament, and we've got our other 2-0 players lined up. That's Ondřej Stráský, who ended up drafting black-white, facing down against Yoshihiko Ikawa, who is on blue-white. Now, when we did our grades for this, we really liked Ikawa's deck and gave it an A-. Ondřej's was a little bit more in the middle of the pack, but still a very good deck, a very serviceable deck, especially given the relative power level of the draft table. And these two find themselves in the finals. So this is to win the pod, Paul. One of these players is going to pick up that extremely coveted 3-0 out of the booster draft.
Yeah, and that's just going to give you such a huge leg up in the rest of the tournament. Starting out with that 3-0 means, you know, your standard record doesn't need to be that great, really, to kind of make it into that top four, because keep in mind, I mean, it's going to be 5 rounds day one, 5 rounds day two. Getting that 3-0 start means, I mean, you know, you can potentially only have to win 3 of your next standard matches to kind of make it in.
Yeah, this is an absolutely massive match for our two players. Let's get underway. It looks like a pretty decent opener here for Stráský. He's got the ambitious farmhand there, as well as a bunch of other good curve stuff. Okay, he draws his worst card here with Hedge Witch's match, but what are you going to do? On the other side, Ikawa, a little bit of a slower hand, but yeah, no white mana, maybe leaning on flip the switch a bit here. This is a little sketchy for Ikawa. Ooh, finds a Falcon Abomination. That'll do.
Yeah. So yeah, solid starts for both players here now. We're going to see Stráský going with the attack. I wonder if Ikawa's going to maybe go for a block to kind of... I guess, no, never mind. That would not actually affect the search party captain at all. And I wonder if...
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I wonder if Ondřej is going to choose to go for the captain now, or potentially wait for a later turn and try to get an even bigger discount on that creature.
That's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to run out Celestis Sanctifier before passing the turn back. Another island off the top, though, for Ikawa. He would like to find a plains at some point here, but you know what? A land isn't the worst. He's still working up towards that Storm Rider Spirit.
Yeah, and given that he didn't find a plains, we're going to see him kind of sit on that flip the switch. We're going to see an activation here from the Celestis Sanctifier, and I'm just curious to see if Ikawa wants to attack here with the Abomination. I mean, he's going to want to leave that bait hook angler back for the Sanctifier. Oh,
cancel
never mind.
That order. So this is a big trigger, though, for Stráský, as there's nothing that Ikawa can do here to stop it from becoming night. And this means the potential for Stráský to start to get ahead a little bit. At least, hello, Intrepid Adversary. He says, I'll keep that one, thank you very much. It's good card filtering for him there.
Yeah, Stráský does need to be mindful of the fact that Ikawa has a counterspell. So I think in an effort to kind of play around that, he's likely going to go for the search party captain into the ambitious farmhand.
This is going to be effectively a must counter here for Ikawa. He just can't afford to do nothing for this turn. Plus, Captain's a good card.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in a racing situation here. Every little bit counts.
But now Stráský can follow up with Ambitious Farmhand. Start farming the competition here. Goes and gets a Plains. And you can kind of see how things map out here for Stráský as he slowly starts to work his way up to a big Intrepid Adversary. Beloved Beggar off the top.
Yeah, Ikawa needed any land to put up a relevant play, but a white card would... any white card would just be an awful draw here. Any land, and you get to play that Storm Rider Spirit. And obviously with the plains, you could run out that search party captain as well. So...
gosh, poor Ikawa can do nothing but smile there because he recognizes that he just cannot cast a spell as a result of that draw step. Only having access to blue mana here is really hurting him, and he doesn't even have enough to cast a Storm Rider Spirit. Really tough here for Ikawa.
Yeah, now that he's used his counterspell too, I mean, he doesn't have an answer to that Intrepid Adversary in Stráský's hand.
Yes, very tough. Another thing that we should note here, Paul, is the Ambitious Farmhand currently is slated to be able to transform as well if Stráský wants to dump some mana into it, and that's going to make racing almost impossible here for Ikawa.
Yeah. Yeah, that can have lifelink. The Intrepid Adversary also has lifelink. So.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's really tough.
This is the best Sanctifier I've ever seen. Like, that was it 3 triggers in 2 turns?
It's
or
just
something?
triggering the whole time. You know, its triggered ability isn't amazing, but it certainly matters. And, you know, I'll tell you who would absolutely kill for one of those triggers is Ikawa. Would love to have that luxury.
Yeah, I mean, it is similar to being able to scry, right? So it is that. And of course, if you manage to hit a Disturb card and put that into your card. Yeah.
So let's see what Stráský wants to do here. He has a lot of good options available to him. He can just cast the Soul Guide Grift. That's a totally fine play here. He can sink some mana into Ambitious Farmhand to kind of firmly put the race back in his favor. But he does have to consider, look, if you're Stráský, you have to assume that Ikawa has at least 1 or 2 white cards in hand, right?
Right.
So what's the second or third card is the decision that he has to make there. And looks like he's going to line up some attacks here.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you know, we're looking at this match face up, right? We see everything that's happening, and we're thinking, well, let's just run out this Intrepid Adversary. Obviously, that's the thing to do. That would be really, really strong, right? But the thing is, I mean, when your opponent passes with 4 islands up, there's all kinds of great bounce spells in the format. Ikawa has Revenge of the Drowned, so he's trying his best to play around whatever Ikawa could have at this juncture. And this is a trade that Stráský is more than happy with, given that he's got that Soul Guide Griff in hand. So now he can just play the Soul Guide Griff, get that Bait Hook Angler out of the graveyard, and also just slow down Ikawa's offense with the Flyer now that he's got the bigger creature in the air.
Come on, Ikawa, find a Plains. No, it's another white card. And that might be a nod of resignation there from Yoshihiko Ikawa, saying, okay, this just might not be my game. A blue castable card would have been acceptable. Even if he found an island, it would at least open up the possibility of Stormrider Spirit, and somehow he found another white card. And you know what? It was a nod of resignation. He's going to pack it in for game number 1, and Ondřej has to feel like he got away with something there. Just a non-game from Ikawa after the first few turns.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ikawa has a great deck. And you know, to be fair, like Stráský did have a really, really great draw that game. So had Ikawa drawn the lands that he needed, it would have been closer. But of course, we don't know for sure who would have gone out ahead there. But of course, always unfortunate to see a game decided because you can't find that source of mana that you need.
Yeah, very tough start there for Ikawa, but he seemed to take it in stride as we head into game number 2 between these two players. Stráský tantalizingly close to a 3-0 start. It's such a buffer, you know, because the thing that you have to remember about these tournaments is that there's 16 players in them, and 4 of them make it to the top 4. So that's actually a pretty big percentage of the field. You know, if you go back to like a set championship, you know, there could be 200, 300, 400 players, and only 8 of them get to play on Sunday. Here, it's a pretty big percentage. You don't need to have an insane record to make top 4. So starting off with 3 wins, if you're even remotely confident with your standard deck, you're already starting to think about, hey, I can kind of stumble through standard and make a top 4 here.
Yeah. And I will say I have played with both of the decks that these players have submitted, and big fan of both of them.
For their standard decks?
For their standard decks, yeah. Ikawa on a mono-white aggro strategy, and Stráský on a teched-out version of the Izzet Epiphany deck.
Boy, that's even more pressure, Paul. You're saying that they really have a chance with their standard choices too. Ikawa's taking a look.
He's like, I didn't draw lands last time. Do I really want to bottom a land?
Well, he's already mulliganed once here, Paul.
Right.
So, yeah, he's going to go ahead and keep this 6. That looks totally fine. And wow, the hand from Stráský looks beautiful if he can find a swamp.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of my natural instinct would be to bottom Plains, but I don't know. Maybe he's got some nightmares from what happened that last game here. And considering the veteran on the bottom, wow.
Wow, he wants I'm surprised to see that. I'm really surprised because the veteran also tends to buy you extra time. And if he's worried about not having land number 4 for Organ Hoarder, you know, he could probably hit it. I'm surprised to see him put a castable spell on the bottom with Lunarch Veteran. At any rate, he did. He's got 2 lands on the battlefield. One of each color, thank you very much. Passes the turn back to Stráský, who plays Lunarch Veteran. Then a land number 2 for Ikawa. And here's land number 2 for Stráský, and he's got the 1-2 punch. Lunarch Veteran into Vampire Interloper. He's going to get aggressive here.
Oh, and look at, I mean, Ikawa off to such a slow start here. And Stráský just has such a nice aggressive curve here, right? Man. I mean, you go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop into potentially adversary if maybe Ikawa, taps out for his turn.
Man, a Lunarch Veteran would have been really nice here for Ikawa. He could have traded with the other one and then made a blocker for the Interloper. That decision might really come back to haunt him here with this very slow start. And he's only going to be casting 1 spell a turn for the next few turns, given what we see from his hand. And he's going to be taking some damage along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fortunately, he will be able to run out this Organ Hoarder. So if anything, it should be able to trade with one of Stráský's creatures here. Still taking 2 in the air, of course, from that Vampire Interloper. But yes, that bottoming that veteran, it would have done so much work, right? I mean, it would have potentially traded, or at least Stráský wouldn't have attacked. I mean, it just would have been really, really big. And now, I mean, Ikawa's life total is just going to continue to go down. Stráský's got that Siege Zombie that can also start draining away, and then probably just going to be sitting on that adversary until he can maybe even potentially hit 6 mana, right? And get that double pump.
Look at this. Stráský's going to pass the turn, not make any play this turn to respect flip the switch. And that's a huge benefit for Ikawa, who now gets to cast Organ Hoarder without having to face an additional creature.
Wow. I mean, so this is the other side of the spectrum, right? You respect your opponent for keeping a hand that probably had some kind of interaction in the first 3 turns, right? It's like, why would you keep that hand? And then playing around a counterspell, but that could also have bought Ikawa the time he needs to turn this around.
Wow, Ikawa with a really nice hit off the Organ Hoarder. He finds a Cathar Commando, but he puts a land that he kind of didn't really need and Devoted Graphkeeper in his graveyard, which has Disturb. So really great stuff there for Ikawa. You know, you start to get the feeling that if this game goes long and he can deal with his adversary, he could win this. By the way, the window, the door, whatever, everything's open and Ondřej's walking through it. He's going to slam Intrepid Adversary, pay once for the triggered ability, and now he's crunching for 5 damage.
Yeah, and Ikawa's agonizing over whether or not he should block this veteran. He does have a Revenge of the Drowned that he can cast on the adversary next turn.
And maybe set up a little blowout.
Right, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Also, right now, the Organ Hoarder's currently the only thing holding back the adversary going forward. He may just need to take a hit here from the veteran. It doesn't feel good.
But he also you also have to kind of respect the fact that Stráský, right, if he passes with 5 mana up, is going to know that something is up and likely will not allow himself to get blown out by a potential Revenge of the Drowned.
Good point. That's true. Yeah, he gave up a lot with that Organ Hoarder. You know, he could double spell this turn with Search Party Captain and Cathar Commando, but instead he's going to just go for Departed Soulkeeper. That's the Devoted Graphkeeper out of the graveyard, by the way. So now he has a blocker. And currently there's no removal here for Stráský, so maybe a tiny bit of breathing room here for Ikawa if he can trade off for the Interloper.
Yeah, I mean, Stráský's only option, the only aggressive thing he can do is just attack with the Interloper and trade with the Soulkeeper. So, yeah, I mean, Ikawa's doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to get hit by both, right? Because the Soulkeeper can only block flyers.
Right, but Ikawa does have the Cathar Commando to ambush the Intrepid Adversary.
Yeah, do you think that, how aware of that is Stráský? Looks like very.
How many does he have? I know, oh no, Sam Party is the one that had 3.
Okay.
Ikawa has 1 copy of Cathar Commando.
It's getting a lot of respect right now. If Ondřej, he does not attack with his adversary. He recognizes how important that card is. But again, this is another conservative play from Stráský, which will pay off for him here, but it also has the effect of giving Ikawa a bit of breathing room. Still, not a lot of it. As you can see, the siege zombie coming down here, and Stráský can pat himself on the back as Cathar Commando hits the battlefield.
I mean, but just look at this board.
Yeah, the intrepid adversary is so strong.
Right, and then Stráský can just get additional value, get a free Lunarch veteran from the graveyard if he chooses to attack with that Dauntless Avenger.
That's right. Siege Zombie activation on end step here as Ikawa passes the turn back. He's got Stormrider Spirit and Revenge of the Drowned at the ready, and he's going to need to get full value off of both of those over the next couple of turns, or Stráský's going to be able to just grind him out here.
Yeah, I imagine Stráský is going to play around basically all the flash spells here at this point, if he can afford to.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been his MO this game, hasn't it?
Yeah. And Ikawa just hoping for a small misstep here to get a little bit of breathing room.
He's going to play this Lunarch veteran pre-combat so that he gains an additional life. Oh, never mind.
Oh, I think Stráský, but just might choose to do nothing here.
He's just going to lean on Siege Zombie a little bit.
Right. He's like, you got 6 mana up. You can have all kinds of nonsense here. I'm gonna just play my cards.
And there was also the Interloper too, Paul. So he was going to get a trigger off that either way.
Right.
But it looks like Ikawa wants to stop that. He's going to go for Dauntless Avenger with Revenge of the Drowned. So that'll effectively take 2 creatures off the battlefield. It comes Bereaved Survivor again, and it will be back on the top of the library. Stráský likes that card, and he wants to keep it. His hand is a little weird. It's Sunset Revelry and Blade Brand. Both of them just effectively cycle in this situation, and he's just going to put the Bereaved Survivor in hand here and then pass the turn back.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get too much more value out of that Sunset Revelry, so he's just trying to at least get that 1 card back before it just does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think if he did find himself in a situation to get value off of it, it probably would mean things haven't gone well. So
right,
get your card and move on with life. That's what he's going to do. And look at this. Yoshihiko Ikawa is going to battle here. Looks like a no-block situation for Stráský sitting at 24 life. The life total aspect of this isn't super relevant. What's really happening is Ikawa wants to get this search party captain on the battlefield for cheap, it looks like.
Yeah, I wonder if Stráský is just contemplating blocking the 2/2 here. It's like, what could you have? If you have some way to interact with my adversary, that'll be really, really bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, opting to just take the damage.
Okay, zombie down. Down to 19 goes Stráský. And now we're going to see Search Party Captain. And this is important. Like, Ikawa really needs to keep hitting here. And he didn't. He hit a land off the top. So now he has a choice of leaving up Stormrider Spirit or casting Falcon Abomination. And that's a pretty obvious answer there. Down to 11 he falls thanks to Siege Zombie. Here comes Bereaved Survivor. Ooh, Candle Trap off the top as well. And it is currently not active. Even though he's got 5 creatures. They're all either 3 or 2 power. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, and with that Bereaved Survivor in play, Ondřej, has been playing a little more conservatively, but now he knows that he can just kind of attack. Bereaved Survivor will flip, and he's got that Blade Brand to trade up if a Stormrider Spirit does choose to block a smaller creature.
Yeah, Ondřej's really putting on a clinic here this game, playing around everything. Yeah, there was a couple of plays that ended up punishing him for it, but he also calculated I can take the hit if he doesn't have it, and that's worked out really well for him. He finds Search Party Captain off of Blade Brand. A couple of creatures are going to hit the graveyard here, but the Dauntless Avenger is a major problem. Like, Ikawa needs to find an answer quickly. Okay, Drownyard Amalgam's interesting. He also can cast both of these cards this turn, Paul.
Wow, okay, so the Drownyard Amalgam is a huge body that Stráský can't attack through. Now, there is a Candle Trap that Stráský does have, but he currently doesn't have Coven, as you pointed out. He's got, what, 2 4-power creatures and a 3/3. He can choose to get the Lunark Veteran into play, put a 2/2 onto the battlefield. If he draws a land, he'll be able to do all the things. He'll be able to get a 2/2 onto the battlefield and also play Candle Trap and activate.
Probably would signal the end of our match here if he's able to peel a land here. He isn't, though that wasn't bad either, Paul. That's a Gavany Silversmith off the top. That's going to be a 3/4 in play that's going to add 2 more counters to things. Effectively 5 power he just drew.
Yeah, and a great mill here from Yoshihiko Ikawa, at least, if he can survive. Hitting a Beloved Beggar off that Drownyard Amalgam.
Definitely. Surviving seems difficult. Remember, Candle Trap still makes it so that he can attack here and keep his creatures around. Now, they may not be able to get through for damage necessarily.
So much value.
Huge power coming over, though. And I got to say, the Dauntless Avenger really doing work here for Stráský. This is the second time that he's been able to transform that card this game. And now you see why. The Interloper crashing in, offering to trade off with the Abomination. But, yeah, really tough spot here for Ikawa. He just hasn't been able to keep up.
Yeah, and now he just doesn't have fantastic blocks. He really wants to be able to use that Cathar Commando and get that Candle Trap off the battlefield, but I don't know if he can afford to here.
Yikes. These are really tough blocks here for Ikawa. He's going to give up both his Falcon Abomination and the Cathar Commando, and no, it won't get activated. That's just to get the Survivor off the battlefield so that he can have any chance at all to come back. He draws a land, he can play the Beggar. How are we looking here?
This is just lethal if Stráský just chooses to attack with everything. I mean, you bring the Beloved Beggar into play, but that's 2 blockers. If you attack with everything, it's just over. Not to mention, you can return the Veteran and just exile the Amalgam for even more insurance here.
Ondřej Stráský marching his way to a 2-0 victory here in the finals. He has been relentless with this deck, really giving no wiggle room to Ikawa on a slow start here in game number 2. And that was after he really put it to him after he didn't find his other color. And Ikawa says, "You've got me," and we've got our second 3-0 drafter. That's Ondřej Stráský picking up the win. Congratulations, Ondřej, the perfect start to his world championship.